Welcome to We Are DB. I'm Danielle, joined by Brenton and Jessica this week.
Hello.
Hello.
There you go. Thanks for joining us for our honorable mention this month as we take the opportunity to talk about a great film that just missed out on being on the IMDb's list of the best movies of all time. This month, rated at 7.9 out of 10 on the Internet Movie Database by millions of film lovers from around the world, is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Released in 2004, starring Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint as the three leads, Harry Potter is a young adult fantasy series set in the early 90s between England and Scotland. This is the third movie of 8 total in the series, made between 2001 and 2011, based on the novel series by J.K. Rowling of 7 books published between 1997 and 2007. The movie is directed by Alfonso Cuarón.
So the fact that we've got Jessica here today is because all three of us have read through the series. So this is episodes for people who might love the movies but not necessarily have seen the books. So I just wanted to say full spoilers about the entire series and what happens in the books from here on. And we did a very good comparison with Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings on the episode on the Two Towers, because there's a lot of traits, more so than just they're both fantasy things and they both have elves and shit.
Very disappointed that my favorite series from childhood ripped off Lord of the Rings so heavily. But anyway.
It's very...
Yes.
Yeah. Have you guys read The Cursed Child? The screenplay or the...
No. I started to and I haven't finished it.
It was weird. I started to as well and I'm like, I don't really like this.
Did she write it?
Yes. And she's writing the screenplay for the 5 Fantastic Beasts movies. Have you guys seen any of those?
Just write books.
Yeah. I don't know why, she says that she loves writing and writing in this world. Why don't you make the Fantastic Beasts into novels and then they'll inevitably turn them into movies anyway, instead of just going straight to movies? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think she definitely should have explained that Dumbledore is gay. That's not explained in any of the books.
Yeah.
Because she just said it on Pottermore, it's a definite. Absolutely.
I think it's just she's just thrown that in to please the community.
Well,
I didn't think it was.
I feel like you look back and you're like, oh yeah, it fits, it makes sense. But it wasn't super obvious. I don't think it was. There wasn't stuff pointing to it, ever.
So technically, Prisoner of Azkaban is our honorable mention this month because there's only one of the 8 movies are currently in the IMDb's top 250, and that is Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Okay.
So the point of the honorable mentions is movies that really should deserve to be in the top 250, and I think that Prisoner of Azkaban is the highest rated one that's not currently in there. So
why is it that you think that Deathly Hallows Part 2 is in there, but The Prisoner of Azkaban isn't?
I think it's just because people liked the conclusion. I think the general fans liked the way it was concluded, so everyone rated it quite highly.
Fair enough. End to an era.
Yeah.
I honestly think, though, that Prisoner of Azkaban is probably the most cinematically well-done movie in the entire series.
Yeah, cinematographically, it's definitely one of the better ones. It's interesting to get someone like Alfonso Cuarón to do this, because you don't usually get many big directors. This is the guy who did Gravity and Roma. I also think that the third one is a pivotal point in the series, from when it goes from a childlike sort of fantasy movies to really dark and more adult. Because by the time you get to Goblet of Fire, it actually starts to get really quite dark, and then obviously a lot more before the end of the series. But I think Prisoner of Azkaban is really quite fun, and it's one of the funnier ones. There's a lot of jokes in it.
Yes.
The 6th one's actually pretty funny as well. There's a lot of jokes in that. I really quite like the 3rd one. I'd like to take this opportunity to break down the whole movie series and just go through very briefly and talk about what we liked and didn't like about all 8 of the films.
Okay.
So 2 weeks from today, we have an episode releasing on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And in that episode, I had said that I can't really think of a property that has a better casting, because everyone in the MCU is casted very perfectly. And until we started to really think critically about the Harry Potter series. And I've written down, there's 2 lists in front of you.
Yes.
If you wanted to go through them, if you care. But the first one is all of the actors that are in it that are either won an Oscar or have been nominated for an Oscar, and there's quite a lot. I just think that at the time that these movies were released, the best of British talent was in these movies. Like, you couldn't get better casting in some of these movies. There's just some really good people working on this whole series.
I feel like anybody who is anybody in British film or television is in this series.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I love that it's like Dawn French, fat lady painting.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fat lady painting. Did you want to look through the list?
We could. So, in the top list, so Oscar winners, we've got Maggie Smith as Professor McGonagall. I feel like
I love her.
She's
so incredible.
I haven't seen her in a lot of other stuff.
You know what you need to see her in is Downton Abbey.
I knew you'd say that.
As Lady Grantham.
Why I think I like her so much is like, I love Professor McGonagall. Like, she's just such an amazing character. Like, she's so good, like a nan that you wish that you had. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. But also, she's like total hard ass.
Yeah,
at the
she's
same time.
rough as shit.
Yeah, she's a good character.
Emma Thompson as Professor Trelawney is perfect.
I did not realize that was her for the longest time. It's the glasses and the hair.
What else is she in?
Emma Thompson?
Yeah, like, I don't recognize the name, but I'd probably recognize her movies. I'm very bad with names.
She was in a few things in the 90s, which she got 2 Oscars for, Sense and Sensibility. She was in Love Actually. She was even in Men in Black 3 and 4. She's in a lot. She was in that Stranger Than Fiction movie.
You'd recognize her if you saw her.
Oh, yep.
Kenneth Branagh is married to Emma Thompson.
He was for a long time.
All right. Interesting. He is Gilderoy Lockhart. But a dick. I didn't like
the
that
character.
Yeah.
I quite like Kenneth Branagh, though.
I honestly feel like, because that was the first role I'd ever seen him in from a young person, like as a child when I watched Chamber of Secrets. And so I feel like that's solidified for me in my mind that, like, I don't like this guy, so I don't like this actor.
Yeah.
Which isn't quite fair, but...
But you make that, like, that leap and that connection at quite a young age, it kind of sticks to you.
It does. Yeah. So I just always think, oh, he's such a dick. Sorry. Not quite fair, but, you know. Richard Harris as Professor Dumbledore. Is that the first Dumbledore or the second Dumbledore? That's the first Dumbledore. I thought he was perfect.
Then he died.
We watched Gladiator recently, and I didn't realize that he was in that. He's the Emperor of Rome. And that was about a year before he was in Philosopher's Stone. I hadn't really seen him in anything else.
He was sick, hey. Like, and you can tell.
Yeah.
Like, because when he was playing Marcus Aurelius, he looked a lot more stronger and with it than he ever did as Professor Dumbledore.
Plus, like, didn't Maggie Smith go through breast cancer through the series? Sure. I'm confident that she did. Like, she was unwell for a couple of the movies.
I hadn't a clue. Gary Oldman as Sirius Black.
That's perfect. I love that.
Perfect.
I love Gary Oldman.
Ralph Fiennes as Voldemort from the Goblet of Fire onward, right?
Yes.
Yes. He is perfect.
He is, but I don't particularly like the depiction of Voldemort.
Yes.
Really?
Because in the books, he was really something to be feared. And in the movies, they were trying to lean into that snake-like person that is described in the books. And he just seems like this slimy, yeah, look at me, I'm Voldemort, yeah. And he's just like, yeah, I don't know, he's kind of weird depiction. I don't think it's anyone's fault. It's the best they could have done.
I think, like, the movies don't really portray him as this ruthless, like, soulless person that he is in the books. Like, in the books, there's a few moments where he just, like, absolutely destroys people over the smallest things, and in the movies you don't quite get to see that. Like, it's just based off his reputation that you know that Voldemort is like Brenton said, like someone to be feared and like has like a high status of
evil,
sure, satanic feeling, I guess.
Yeah, I think too, and I mean it's hard because we've all read the books and we're all fans of the books, so we're biased, but like I think part of that comes down to like, what do you pick to show in a movie, you know?
But yeah, the fact that majority of the fan base of Harry Potter have all read the books. So we all already know who Voldemort is, where he's come from, like, and the progression of his character alone throughout the books. But the movie is just solely, I feel, relies on the fan base to have already read the book.
Well, and I've said that right from the word go. There's so many instances where it's like, well, of course I know what's going on. I read the books.
That's
Whereas
exactly right.
If you hadn't... Like, I couldn't imagine going through and watching these without having read them. You'd be so lost.
Yeah.
Especially from probably Goblet of Fire onward.
Yes.
It doesn't
Definitely.
lay it out for you anymore. Helena Bonham Carter as Bellatrix Lestrange. I love her so much in this role.
Yeah.
She is so perfect. Julie Walters as Molly Weasley. I quite like her as well. John Cleese is Nearly Headless Nick. I didn't
That's perfect.
realize... Yeah. I didn't realize that who he was for the longest time.
Yeah, because it was before you watched Monty Python or Fawlty Towers.
So since discovering Monty Python and falling in love with Monty Python, I think it's such a great homage to like British comedy that he got to be in this because it's such a huge
His comedic, like, role.
Yeah, and it's such a huge pop culture phenomenon. I'm glad that he's in there. John Hurt as Mr. Ollivander. Small role, but it works quite well.
But John Hurt is a classic actor. Now, he still currently holds the record for most amount of deaths depicted on film and in television, which most people think that Sean Bean has that because he's notorious for it. John Hurt has died nearly 50 times on screen, but and oddly enough, he doesn't die as Ollivander in the series. But I wanted to mention that because he's a very well-known actor. And I'm very glad that he got to be in this very big British series, even if it was a small role.
He does die in the series, doesn't he? In, like, the 7th one.
I don't think he does at the 7th one. I think he gets tortured and he gets, like, locked up, but I don't think he dies.
Oh, I'm confident that he does.
I'm confident that he does, but
Okay.
that it isn't shown in the movies.
I think it...
Right, maybe that's that. Maybe it's that.
No, I'm confident that even in the movie, it kind of fades away and it cuts away, but you know that... So technically, you're right, it's not on screen.
We see him kidnapped, and then that's kind of the last time we see him.
Okay.
Up until this point. Imelda Staunton as Dolores Umbridge. Okay. She plays
that
it well.
character.
I feel bad for her because she is a much more attractive woman than the description in the books of that character allows.
She was meant to be, like, toad-like and, like,
Yes.
gross to look at.
To be really, like, rude about it, I think Miriam Margolyes, who plays Professor Sprout, fits the physical description a bit better than Imelda Staunton does.
She's a weird woman, that woman.
I think that's another kind of hard because I hate Dolores Umbridge.
We all do.
She's one of the
much,
best
but
villains in
That's
literature.
exactly right. Like, you can't help but love the actress because she's done such an incredible job of not only making you hate Dolores Umbridge, but to carry it again through other, like, series and TV shows and movies that she's in that you're like, I still hate you, Dolores.
Yeah. Like, it's stuck now. Like, you're her. Sorry. Like, and I always say, of the actors and of the author, you wrote that character perfectly for me to fucking hate that bitch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, perfect character development. And for that actress to be able to carry that out, like, great acting.
I believe Stephen King even praised her for that and said, congratulations, you've made one of the best villains in literature. Which is pretty high praise, yeah. That's from Stephen King.
Jim Broadbent as Professor Slughorn. He's acted a lot more... He's more awkward and weird in the movies than I imagined him in the books.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, he's got twitches and he's kind of odd, and I never imagined Professor Slughorn as odd. I just imagined him as a bit pompous.
He was supposed to be really poised in the books, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he's just a little bit funny.
Madeleine's beard.
I love that. I wish I could start saying that in life.
Then why don't you?
I don't
No one's
know.
stopping you.
Julie Christie as Madame Rosmerta. We don't see her. We see her one time.
Yeah.
Who's Madame Rosmerta?
She's the innkeeper at the Three Broomsticks in Hogsmeade.
That's right, yeah. She's in Prisoner of
I didn't know
Azkaban.
that was her name.
Yeah. So there is a scene with her and Professor McGonagall and Minister for Magic Cornelius Fudge, but it's not particularly important. She's kind of just... Honestly, a lot of these characters kind of make cameos, in the movie, because they had much bigger roles in the books that just can't be fit in. Otherwise, we'd have Lord of the Rings on our hands again.
Yes.
Is that the list of the Oscar winners and nominees?
That's the Oscar winners. Now, here's the rest who aren't Oscar winners, who I think deserve to be looked at. Alan Rickman as Professor Snape.
You couldn't get a better casting than that.
No. Always perfect. Michael Gambon as Professor Dumbledore from Prisoner of Azkaban onward. You say, Brenton, that you think he was a better cast for Dumbledore.
Yeah, mostly, well, I kind of like the old grandpa kind of feel of Richard Harris in the first two. However, I don't see him being able to do what Dumbledore does in some of the later movies and books physically, and, like, he doesn't feel like the all-powerful Dumbledore. He feels like he's too old and fragile.
Who played Gandalf?
Ian McKellen.
He would have, I mean, there's an obvious reason why he didn't play Dumbledore, because it just would have been way too fucking confusing, but I feel like he would have hit all the notes.
He was offered the role after Richard
Yes.
Harris died, but because he was literally doing Lord of the Rings at the time, he turned it down because he said it's going to be too confusing and too clashing for the audience.
But I think if,
He would have been good.
He would have been good because he had that soft demeanor, but he also had the ability to be powerful and a badass, you know what I mean? So if circumstances had been different, I think he would have been a really good casting. Warwick Davis as Professor Flitwick. They change him.
I don't know why they changed him. He's really hairy and white-haired when in the first two, and then from the third one onwards.
Yeah. He looks like a goblin,
Yes.
almost.
Yeah, I don't know why they changed it. Maybe because it's just too weird and too annoying to do all the prosthetics and shit.
Probably.
I don't know. Can I just say,
Yep.
he's one of the only people to be in all three of the Star Wars trilogies.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Quite prolific. Robert Pattinson as Cedric Diggory.
And that was before his Twilight years, wasn't it?
So nobody knew who he was yet.
Yeah.
So you go back, and then you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And now he's going to be
I remember-
Batman.
Oh.
That's just weird. I don't like that.
I mean, let's not... I mean, I'm very intrigued to see what he does with it, and not to rule it out completely. He might nail it, I don't know, but... Can
Yeah,
I
we'll
just
see.
say, complete tangent, Jared Leto is the worst Joker
That was a
has
weird
ever
pick.
existed.
Yeah.
I hate it so much.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it either. You're talking about Suicide Squad,
Have you seen
right?
it?
Yeah.
Jess?
Yes, yes.
Was it just cringy?
It was very, very cringy and so, like, try hard. And, like, Jared Leto
Yeah,
is a
that's what it came across as.
fantastic actor, you know, like, artist in general, but I just really did not like it at all. And I understand that, like, the whole premise of Suicide Squad was for it to be different and to take a new spin on things, but no, not for me. Anyway, back on track.
I think Margot Robbie makes a good Harley Quinn, though. Anyway,
She's a good cast.
Brendan Gleeson as Mad-Eye Moody. Very good.
Yep.
You don't have Robbie Coltrane on this list.
No, I didn't. No. I think he's probably the most perfectly cast next to Snape.
Yeah. Robbie Coltrane plays Hagrid. He's perfect. He's perfect.
And even Joe Rowling said, like, that was exactly who I was picturing. Like, the depiction of Hagrid is so accurate.
You also don't have, what's her name, who plays Luna Lovegood.
Look, man, just go nuts. Ivana Lynch, who played Luna Lovegood.
Apparently, her acting in the first movies that she was in actually influenced the writing of the character in subsequent books. That says something. I think.
It was kind of interesting because she was suffering from anorexia and she was in hospital. And she had written quite a few letters to J.K. Rowling. And she made a promise to her that, like, if you can beat this illness, I'll give you a role in the new movie. So it was her goal, and then she auditioned like everyone else, but she got it. And that's how she got into the movie.
That's awesome.
She was a massive fan who was in hospital, yeah.
And she's like,
She's not bad. Like, you wouldn't
No.
realize that she's not a professional actor.
Yeah.
she does it quite well. Domhnall Gleeson? Is that how you say his name?
Domhnall.
Okay.
I don't know.
It-
Yeah.
Sounds Gaelic or something. Bill Weasley. He's been good in pretty much everything I've seen.
Yeah, he's
him in.
Brendan Weasley's son.
Yeah.
Brendan Weasley? Brendan Gleeson. Fuck
There
me.
you go. Timothy Spall as Peter Pettigrew.
That's a good one.
I hate that fuck.
Yes.
Anyway. Bill Nighy as... Is he Cornelius Fudge? No, he's not.
He's the new Minister for Magic.
Oh, what's his name? He's in the 7th one. He was quite good. Rufus Scrimgeour?
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. It's Bill Nighy. Pretty good casting, I think. Miriam Margolyes. I'm just going to say that's how you say her name. She's Professor Sprout. She is weird woman. We've seen her a couple times on Graham Norton.
She's very strange. Yeah.
She's completely inappropriate. Rhys Ifans is Xenophilius Lovegood. Again, quite a small role. Kinda
is
works.
a small role, yeah. I've
That's
seen him in quite
Luna's
a few
dad.
things, though.
Yeah. Dawn French is the fat lady in the painting for Gryffindor Common Room.
And I think that's just like a cameo as well, because she was very big in the 90s in British comedy, so I think they were just throwing her a bone there and giving her a funny line or two.
It worked, though. It was good. She was good.
Yeah.
And then David Tennant as Barty Crouch Jr. He was fine.
Yeah, I put that one in there because I think he's notable because he was Doctor Who for quite a while.
Oh, was he?
And some people
Alright.
consider him their favourite, you know.
Okay, fair enough.
Righto. Yeah, so this is going to be a long episode, I think, to go on a bit of a side note and go over all of our characters.
It is such a big cast, and there's so many notable actors with such small roles.
So let's kind of dive into the actual movies now. So there's an obvious progression from the first movie to the 8th movie, just as there was an obvious progression from the first book to the last book. And I thought it was interesting reading it because each subsequent movie is made for people of the age of that year.
It is, yeah, and
Right?
the books are written that way as well, like you just said.
Yeah, so like the first book was quite small, but it was still really captivating and it was super magical. Like that's what I loved about the first book is you read it and you're getting introduced to all this stuff and it's all sparkly and shiny and new. And it's really shown very well in that first movie, especially when Harry and Hagrid go for the first time to Diagon Alley. I loved going to the set. You haven't been, have you, Jessica?
No.
Brenton and I were both really lucky to get to go to the Universal Studios set outside of London. And
Warner Brothers Studios.
oh, sorry, did I say Universal Studios?
Yeah.
Sorry, Warner Brothers Studios outside of London. And it was so cool to go through that set. I was only sad it didn't feel as bright as it looked in the movies.
As bright?
And of course, it didn't feel as like lifelike. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, they had all the costumes and the wands and all the props that they used in the movies.
But
Because-
can we just say, like, when the first book came out, what was it, 97?
Yes.
I was 1. So to think about the fact that, like, you know, maybe 5, 6, 7 years later, I picked up Harry Potter. So the lifespan of the first novel, like its lustrous, lifelike, its energy carried for 7 years for
Yeah.
someone to go, yep, I'm going to read this 7-year-old book. But then for it to carry, like, so year after year after year, so people that read the first book when it came out, and then they waited and picked up the second book, and then they waited for it to span 10 years of someone being excited about a book release and a book drop, that's fantastic writing.
yeah.
And I don't think I've really experienced that since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was an event to go to the bookstore to get the new release whenever Harry Potter came out. Like, it was unlike anything I've experienced.
Yeah.
And people, like, I remember seeing on the news, you know, it would be on the news when J.K. Rowling did the midnight readings of each of the new
Yeah.
book launches. You know, like, it was a huge deal.
Huge thing.
Um,
And you think about it now, like, it's still a huge thing. Like, you know, Harry Potter plays the series on TV at least once a year.
Yeah.
And, you know, but going back again a decade since the first movie was released or whatever, if not more, I can't remember. But I know there are a lot of things that, you know, you read the book and you're like, oh, well, you didn't try too hard in this point, or this kind of feels a little bit like that. But it's still together collectively a fantastic series. You know, it still carries energy now.
yeah.
Like, small children are like, I'm going to read Harry Potter. Yeah,
Well,
man.
And one of the coolest things I think about this series is that there's only one instance where it's dated. So that's why.
Yeah, which is why I think it works.
Yes, because you can pick it up and you can be like, this could be happening now. There's
Yeah.
nothing to say that it's not. And so I remember when I read,
I think it was until the 7th one.
yes, it's the dates on his parents' tombstones. And I was like, what? No. You mean this all happened already? No.
When was it supposed to... What were the dates again?
It was...
The Battle of Hogwarts was meant to be 1997. So Harry
Yeah.
was born in 80, 81? I think it was 81.
yeah.
But that's the only time you've really had the dates was in the 7th book, and then it's like, it puts context in it.
And it just, to me, like, that just threw it for me. Personally, I was like, no, I just prefer to think that they died at some point and I don't need to know when. You know what
Yep.
I mean? It took me out of it personally. However, we have talked about how understanding that the movies are set in the 90s actually makes stuff make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, once you rewatch it, it's kind of obvious that it's set in the early 90s. I always just thought, it's just an English countryside or something, you know what I mean? Like suburbia. But it's kind of obvious now that you look back at it. Just from the fashion and the technology and stuff.
And it works.
This really was a defining series, book and movie of our, like, generation.
100%.
It instantly became a modern classic.
It kind of makes me sad that the younger generations won't experience that excitement that us as, like, 90s kids did.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like Brenton said, it's like, or as you said, you can remember it being on the news and you can remember, like, the excitement of the book coming out. Like, what kid these days is like, oh my god, there's a no book, like, let's go get it. Like,
I wrote to J.K. Rowling and I got a letter back. And I was pretty fucking excited about it.
Oh, yeah?
It was a form letter, so it wasn't, like, actually... Because she gets millions,
I was going
right?
to say, how do you know she chose you?
But I still got a letter back. It's
exciting.
In my keepsake
Do you still have
book. Yeah. It's at my mom's house. I remember I got it. I was like 12 or something. And I'm like, who the hell is writing to me from Scotland?
Hogwarts.
Yeah. So yeah, I opened it. It was like, oh my god. It was super cool.
You were expecting it to be a letter of acceptance.
No, because I had written to her.
That would be cool if it had a little Hogwarts seal on the back.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my god. You probably can't do that because you'll give all these children heart attacks.
I can hear you gleaming over there.
Me?
Yeah, you're like, ooh.
You should see it.
So we haven't actually talked about any of the movies yet.
Yeah, so the thing that I think makes the first one so magical is it brought to life all the interesting things that were described in the book, right?
Yeah.
But I think this series was really brilliant in taking old mythology and lore as to what is witches and witchcraft and fantasy and put them in sort of a real-life setting. How do broomsticks work and how do wands work, you know? And what you have to take charms and potions. There's cauldrons. Like, everyone has a cat or an owl or something, you know? It was really well done.
Like, how amazing that you take this archetype of the witch with a broom and you make a sport out of it. And you play Quidditch, you know? And I always thought to myself, God, you're such a dork, because that was the only sport in high school that I understood all the rules to.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, God.
Well, just the idea of a school for witches and wizards, like that, I hadn't really heard of that before. The idea of witches and wizards obviously had been around for centuries, but, like, where did you learn it all? Where did your parents learn it all, Harry? In a big castle somewhere, you know? It's, like, a very interesting theory.
Yeah, she took it and she rolled with it and made it fun and made it engaging. The tropes of, like, what a witch is in a really fun way.
As in, like, the pointy hats and the robes.
Yeah, how she fits them and weaves them into a modern society quite well.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a bit about, as someone who knows a bit about contemporary witchcraft and traditional witchcraft, so as a, like, spirituality and religion, I think I wanted to talk about how she'd actually incorporated some of the lesser known elements of witchcraft as well. So things like runes.
I thought you would say runes.
Yeah, so Hermione does an ancient runes class, which is really interesting, and they're part of the Norse tradition of witchcraft. Things like...
You liked the way that it incorporated actual witchcraft.
So all of those things, like the broom, the cauldron, the hat, the cat, the potions, those are things that do have an actual spiritual basis. The wand, obviously. I like the way she took those things and made them fun.
Well, I think she made witches and wizards... Well, maybe not so wizards, but witches were, like, villainous creatures. Like, they weren't something to aspire to become, or they weren't fun. And she's completely changed it forever, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the definition of what this character could be, what is this creature, you know what I mean? And she's done that with quite a few. Like, I think Tolkien's representations of what elves are is very different to everything other elf sort of representation. He's sort of changed what a dark elf could be, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you're a very big cultural impact when you're able to do that with your works. And I think she will go down in history like Tolkien has.
I just like what she did with it. She took something
Yeah.
that was misunderstood.
And it's all throughout.
She transformed it in a way that I think still pays respectful homage to what it was originally, is what I'm trying to say.
She brilliantly created her own world.
Yes. And it's so interesting to me, too, because you hear her say in the interview, she said one day the idea just walked fully formed into her head when she was on the train from London.
Yeah.
It's like, how does this just pop into your head, you know? But it's amazing.
It took her like 6 years to write that first book just because there was so much planning and foreshadowing.
Well, she'd have had to have mapped out the entire trajectory of the story first.
She did, yeah.
Like, I could just imagine you've got these cork boards on your wall with the strings and everything, you know, like figuring out how stuff's connected and...
Well, I wrote down a bit of a list here, full spoilers, obviously, as to a bunch of things that are shown in the first one or two movies that aren't explained until the very last book or the very last movie. And I think that is really good foreshadowing.
And it makes it fun for the readers.
Yeah, because it's like, what is that?
Oh my god, I knew it! Yeah. Anyways, go for your list.
So there's the fact that Harry can talk to snakes.
Yep.
That's obviously the link that he had with Voldemort, which isn't explained until, I think, the fifth one, where they're like...
It's not even introduced till the fifth one.
It's not introduced till the fifth one, but fully explained until the seventh one. And he's talking to snakes as early as this first movie in the first book. I think the first movie is very accurate to the first book because it was a pretty short book.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
So it's a pretty good representation. And the second one is as well. And they're long movies. Like, they're almost 3 hours long. I didn't realize how long they were until we watched them again. The fact that Dumbledore has his Deluminator in the very first scene, it's like, what is that and how does that work?
And it's also like, well, why are you using a Deluminator when you can just, like, whip some magic around?
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting just showing that visually. The fact that Harry gets his invisibility cloak, like, what is that and where did it come from? I was never really understood that until the last one, at least.
And the thing for me that was kind of like mind-blowing that I only just realized since we've been watching these again is that there was one point where Dumbledore he didn't have all 3 Deathly Hallows, but he had access to all 3.
Yeah.
Well, it is in that where he gets the invisibility cloak, because that's when he's obviously had all 3 of these Deathly Hallows, which you find out later on in the books when he's searching for all the Horcruxes and stuff like that. And then he gives it to Harry. So he's had all 3 of them when Harry gets the...
Well, he didn't have the ring yet. He didn't get the ring until the 5th book.
Did the ring have the resurrection stone on it?
Yes.
The Horcrux ring?
Yes.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay.
110%.
Yeah.
So he had the ring, he had the wand, and he knew that Harry had the cloak, so if he ever needed it, he could just...
Yeah, but for 11 years, James had that cloak, right? And then he gave it to Dumbledore, and then Dumbledore had it for 11 years? Is that what happened?
Like
and then he gave it to Harry?
Yeah.
Okay.
But he didn't have the ring yet at that
Right,
time.
yeah. I'm just saying, like, that's really good foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Why Voldemort is between life and death, like, that's obviously because he's used these Horcruxes and he's split his soul, and that's not really shown with anyone else because no one else is really using Horcruxes. It's either life or death. And Voldemort is the only one who's really between the two, and it's not really explained why until the 6th one.
Yeah, because he's just kind of an essence for a while, and you don't understand why. You're like, oh, it's magic. It must just be magic stuff. Yeah. But there's actually a reason for it.
A really brilliant twist in Deathly Hallows is why Snape despises Harry.
Yeah.
That's got some really big weight behind it.
I can't actually remember.
It's because he looks like his dad.
Well, yeah, and he really didn't like his dad, and he loved Lily, obviously. So looking at Harry, he sees both Lily and James. Yeah. He was reminded that he hated James, and he managed to get with Lily, and... You know, he's just a product of this relationship that Snape despised.
Yeah. Heavy.
Why did Voldemort actually kill Harry's parents? Because they were Aurors?
Because of the prophecy.
Okay. So the prophecy was that someone born at the end of July would come and kill me.
Yeah, so he made a point of going, like, because it's talked about in the books, it could have been Harry or it could have been Neville.
Yeah, which is why Neville's parents were killed as well.
Yes.
Which is really
Right.
interesting, right? So basically, Voldemort put all of those cogs in motion.
Yeah.
If he had just
left it.
he probably never would have died.
Yeah.
He would have continued on his reign, but him making the decision to seek out the prophet is what in turn caused his demise.
Yeah. Yeah. Did that answer your question, though, Brenton?
Yes.
It's because the prophecy said it's supposed to be this person. So he was going to kill Harry. And in the process, of course, you're going to kill the parents because you're Voldemort and they're going to try and stop you and blah. And yeah. So that's
Well, the
why.
one thing that I never really got in the books and in the movies is that it's briefly explained why Harry is the only person that has survived the killing curse. Is because of this love charm that Lily had placed on him. Because I think it's said that, like, her sacrificing her life for Harry's is the purest form of love. So it created this
protection.
protection around him. I've never really understood that part.
I think that's one of those things where, as readers, we've had to say it's kind of hokey and it doesn't make sense, but we'll just go with it. Because I'm
Yeah.
kind of with you.
Well, I think there's a few things that we've done on this series where it's been hard for me to be really critical because I have nostalgia for it and I really love it.
Yeah.
And even though I love this book and movie series and I'm filled with nostalgia with it, I can very easily say that it's just full of flaws. Like, even the book had holes in it, and J.K.
Yeah.
Rowling has come out and said, yeah, but it's not as fun if you try to, like,
Fix
either be nitpicky or try and fix them all, like, just sort of go with it. Most of the main plot holes are filled, but you can definitely still find them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that point where Lily sacrifices herself for, and they called him James, Harry, when he tries to kill Harry, there's blowback. So then Harry becomes a Horcrux, right?
Yeah, like I was just thinking about that. He's tried to kill him, it didn't work, and so I think what happened is, because Brenton was asking, well, how come he didn't make a Horcrux every time he killed someone? He's killed hundreds of people. He only purposefully took that severed bit of his soul and put it into an object 6 times. The 7th time was Harry, unintentionally.
No, Harry was the 8th.
Well, there's 7 Horcruxes, including Harry.
I didn't think it was including Harry.
I thought it was including
It
Harry.
is including Harry.
Oh, okay.
Here we go again. It's the book, the ring, the locket, the cup, the crown, the snake, and Harry. That's 7. Yes. Okay. So what I think happened is he goes to kill him, it bounces back and doesn't work, and because
he's already between life and death,
Yeah.
it splits his soul again.
yeah, or it takes a bit that's been split
Well,
and
that-
puts it in him unintentionally.
Well, that was my question, because in the 6th one, he says, in order to split the soul, you murder.
Yeah.
And I think Voldemort's killed a lot more than 7 people. Why is his soul
So
not
what
it
split
means
every
is
time?
It is.
If you have the intention and you murder someone, your soul is already damaged. So if your soul is damaged, it's more likely to be split because the integrity is less.
Yes. And he just,
Right.
like, it's split every time, but the intentional putting it into an object only happens when you want it to. Except in the case of Harry, where it happened because the curse bounced back. So something had to happen, so it put a bit of his soul in him instead of killing him. That makes sense to me.
I think it's really interesting that they show a Horcrux as early as the 2nd one, and it's not really explained what kind of magic that is until the 6th one.
Yeah, and it's just really interesting that, again, with the foreshadowing, he's killed it with the Basilisk Fang,
Yeah.
right? So he doesn't even know what he's done.
Yeah, so what was the significance with that?
That's one of the only things that can
Destroy
destroy
Horcrux.
Horcruxes.
Interesting.
What was the other one? It was the
It was Basilisk, Venom, and
steel. No, because he killed the Basilisk with the
Sword.
With the sword, yeah.
Which it takes on that which makes it stronger.
So he unintentionally created a weapon to destroy Horcruxes.
Yeah. Well, and even in the last book, Ron and Hermione go down to the chamber and get all these fangs to start stabbing stuff.
That's a
with.
cool scene.
Yeah.
Because it's got like the old skeleton there, yeah.
Was it ever explained why the Basilisk is even down there? And
Yeah, it's because in the 2nd book, they're talking about Salazar Slytherin. He only wanted Hogwarts to be a school for pure-blooded wizard students, but the other founders didn't agree with him So he said, well, fuck you, I'm leaving. But he created the chamber so that he could house his monster so that when the timing was right, he can do his genocide, his muggle-born genocide.
Yeah, clean out.
What was
the
it
Hogwarts.
eating for all those years?
Dead!
Rats.
What?
Did you say dead?
Yeah. Where was who all those years?
I said, what was the basilisk eating for all those years?
All the rats.
You think that giant monster is going to survive?
I don't know, Jessica.
Well, see, flawed.
You gotta think about these things.
It had all those rat skeletons down there.
Okay.
There was a lot of skeletons, yeah. Maybe it's just all the half-borns that he's been taking over the centuries and no one's noticed.
Probably. Could be that.
Could be that. I'm with you. There's a big snake under the school and nobody knows about it. I hear you. Yeah.
What was with the petrifying again?
It's because none of the people actually looked it in the eye.
Oh, that was such like a big as if. Like, oh, they had to happen to be looking at water and looking through glass and looking at a mirror. It happened like 4 or 5 times.
None of the people who got petrified looked at the snake's eyes. They never looked it directly in the eye. They only saw a reflection or like through nearly headless Nick. And like Harry said, Nick's already a ghost. He can't die again. So...
Well, there was the one kid who looked through the camera lens, right?
Yep.
So that's just looking through glass. So wouldn't Harry be safe because he's wearing glasses?
No, we talked about that because...
What? It's a genuine question.
Such a simple protection. You can't kill me, I'm wearing glasses.
Exactly, right? It's got safety glasses on.
No, we talked about it. Cameras have mirrors in them.
Right, so it has to be a reflection.
Okay, but where was all this petrifying in the first one? Because the basilisk, and that whole concept still would have been around in the first one, right?
There was something about the air returning, which is the fact that the diary came back to Hogwarts in the second one is what sparked all of this.
Yes, because I remember thinking that when I was reading, I'm like, Ginny's not the heir of Slytherin.
Yeah.
No, it's that she's...
Voldemort's the heir, right?
Yeah, she's the vessel that the memory of Tom Riddle is working through. That's what it is. You know what I mean? And so the fact that the diary is back, the bit of Voldemort that's in the diary is the heir.
Would you guys say Voldemort or Voldemort? Because it was meant
I say
to
Voldemort.
not pronounce the T.
Yeah.
Was the intention, but no one really sticks to that.
I think I used to say Voldemort and now I say Voldemort. Just
Right.
because...
The movies.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that from the very first one, they don't explain why you can't say Voldemort. Like, no one wants to say it. And I don't think it's explained at all in the movies, but it's explained in the books that it summons Death Eaters if you say it.
Yeah.
Which is why everyone's terrified to say it. And the only people who aren't is Dumbledore, mostly, and Harry, because he doesn't understand the full weight of it. But Dumbledore, because he's not afraid of Death Eaters. And I think that's an interesting thing that you could have just explained in one line.
But even all the times that Harry has said Voldemort throughout the entire book series and Death Eaters have never shown up, is that because during that period of time when Voldemort was MIA, that the Death Eaters had pretty much dispersed?
I think
thought
so.
it was, yes.
But then he comes back. When is he reborn? In the 5th one?
Mm-hmm.
The 4th one.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, gotcha. I answered my own question.
Okay, cool.
I think it was really cool how in the first one, Ron tries to do that spell on his rat in the carriage and it doesn't work. Turn this stupid fat rat yellow.
Yeah!
Because he's not a rat. And that's not explained for 2 more movies.
Yes!
Yeah.
That's why that doesn't work.
He still manages to turn him into a cup.
Very
with
poorly.
a rat tail. Yeah. Do you think that had to do with the fact...
That he had a broken wand?
No, well, that he had a broken wand, but also that he's not actually a rat.
Well,
he's an animagus.
The thing with that spell is it's not trying to turn a rat into a cup. It's trying to turn whatever it's pointing at into a cup.
Yeah.
The fact that he's on the train, he specifically says, turn this rat, and that's why it doesn't work.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think that's, it's different.
Interesting. Very good foreshadowing.
Yes.
Let's talk about The Prisoner of Azkaban, specifically. I remember going to the movies with my dad. I was in grade 3.
I went to the drive-in. This is the last movie I went to the drive-in cinema.
That would have been creepy as shit to watch at the drive-in.
It was pretty cool.
Was it dark outside?
Yes.
I think the only one of these movies that I haven't seen in the cinemas was the 6th one. I've seen every other one of them else in the cinemas.
I went to the movies with my dad because I was in grade 3. I won Student of the Month. We got a movie pass. I said, Dad, we're going to see Harry Potter.
What a flex. You just had to throw that in there.
Yes, I did. Yes. So we went, and I remember, like, I was so excited. And even though there were some parts that were, like, scary as shit to an 8-year-old, I was like, I still want to see it, though. You know what I mean? I was so into it.
Well, I think Prisoner of Azkaban is one of my favorite ones to watch because we spoke about cinematography. There's a lot of great one-shots, and there's a lot of, like, it's a beautifully done film. There's some shots where the camera goes through the clock tower and some of the shots of the castle. You get to see more of the castle than the first two.
Yeah.
I think it's good for character development also.
It is. Like, the actors have settled into their characters better than the first two. And I don't know what it is about, like, the way they did their hair in this, but there's a bunch of good-looking people in this one. Like, they look more like they've really grown up.
Yeah.
Well, and I said I like, because this is the first movie where we actually start to see them, like, wearing regular clothes at sometimes, and not wearing their uniforms properly, which exactly they would, because they're teenagers.
Yeah, they were always wearing robes in the first two, weren't they?
Yeah. So, like you said, they're settling into it. They're being regular teenagers. One of my favorite scenes of the whole series was the one where they're eating the candies in the dorm. All the boys are eating the candies.
Yep.
Yeah. Because I'm just like, it's so silly. And of course, that's exactly what they'd be doing because they're all 13-year-old boys, you know?
I think it's really good for, like, Hermione's character development also because it's where she kind of starts to lean into this band of misfits that is the three of them as a trio. Because in the first one, she's, like, very
pompous.
Yeah. You know, you can't do that, like, follow the rules and regulations and that sort of stuff. The second one, it's a little bit, you know, like, her development throughout the thing is where she gets more courage and she does more, like, you know, adventurous things.
She's less of a straight arrow here, and it's where she really starts to be more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can I just say, as someone who's a very similar age to all these actors, I had a real thing for Hermione for the longest time.
Tell us why, Brenton.
Because she's hot.
She's a good-looking chick.
Yeah. She's smart.
I swear that Draco was a different actor because he looks so different from the second one to the third. But it's just Tom Felton grew up a bit. Didn't have his hair slicked back like an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's really good as well, Tom Felton.
Yeah.
To make you hate that character. And then what really annoys me is they're trying to make you feel sorry for him in the last couple of books. Yeah. And or last couple of movies as well. Like, I don't feel sorry for you.
You snivelly little bitch.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. And I mean, I think too, if we wanted to go analyze it a bit, he's Lucius Malfoy's son. I reckon he doesn't get a whole lot of praise, you know? So he's like a bully because he's trying to get what he's not getting, you know? But at the same time, he's a wank.
Oh, yeah. Wank. He gets enough praise from his mum. He's like quite wrapped in cotton wool and she, you know, dotes on him.
Absolutely.
I really quite liked the elements of time travel and the mystery of Sirius Black. Like, you didn't know who this character was or where he was or what his capabilities were.
Which, again, wasn't explained until later on in the movie why she would, like, how she got it, what was doing, and...
The time turner?
Yeah. And how it... Didn't it benefit Dumbledore in some aspect?
Oh, I don't remember.
I don't think so. She was doing it because she wanted to take more classes.
It's a very trippy aspect of that movie. Is that you're like, oh, this is what that is, and that's how that happened, and oh, it was them all along.
There was a lot
was his own Patronus.
Yeah, there was a lot of what moments in this. One of the biggest ones being the Peter Pettigrew reveal and the oh my god, Sirius Black isn't actually a bad guy.
Also, I think it's really sad where he's standing on the bank of that lake and he's like, my dad will come. He's going to come. You're going to see him. He's right there. And then he realizes that, like, I actually have to be my own hero, which is kind of
thread of the whole series.
Yeah, it really is, and it's like he's gonna come, he's gonna save me. Don't worry. And it's like, nah, sorry,
mate.
He did.
He did.
You see it a lot throughout the whole series. Like, he's so desperately wanting to cling to those irrational thoughts of, well, maybe this will happen.
His perception on reality in regards to his family And he keeps thinking that they'll come back and they'll come save him throughout the entire series, from book 1 to book 7.
He does, doesn't he?
It's quite... Yeah, he has some mental health issues.
Well, and why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and he's being traumatized again and again and again. And it must be hard too, because even though he's pure blood, Harry is technically like a Muggle-born student. Like, he didn't grow up with magic.
Yeah.
So everything's new to him. So there's things where he's like...
It's hard because he has all this pressure.
Yeah, and there's things where he's like, well, maybe magic can work this way. You know, whereas like someone like Ron, he'd be like, no, it can't, mate. You know? Yeah.
There's a couple of things in Prisoner of Azkaban that are explained in the books that I wish they had put just in the movie, just as a line. One of the main ones is they never explain who the Marauders map was, like who the four Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs.
Where we just know because we read the books.
Yeah, if you've read the books, it's obviously Lupin, Pettigrew, Sirius Black, and James Potter. And it's interesting enough, they all die in reverse order of what they appear on the map.
Do you think that's just a coincidence?
I don't know. It would be a pretty good coincidence. And there's also explaining what the Shrieking Shack is. Like, it was built for Lupin by Dumbledore so that he had somewhere to go every month to turn into a werewolf. Like, the noises of the Shrieking Shack were Lupin when he was at school.
Which is crazy.
That's how he was kept, like, that's how Sirius Black was getting in and out of the castle. There's a lot there that isn't really explained.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
This is where we're first introduced to Dementors, which is
obviously the Grim Reaper, right? Like, that's such a...
Well, but it's a really amazing metaphor, actually, because she created them based around her depression, which is, like, I think that's such a powerful, powerful statement to say. They make you feel as though you'll never be cheerful again. Like, all the happiness has been drained out of the world. Like, when you realize that was based on a real experience, you're like, whoa. This movie, like we were talking about, has a lot of fun elements. This is where we have the night bus.
Can we just say, oh, don't get me started on the night bus. Can we just say that Dudley's eyes are so close together?
Oh my god,
they are.
Literally said
they
that.
are.
Yeah.
Because I googled what that actor looks like now, and he lost a lot of weight after it. But man, his eyes.
Did his eyes?
Together.
They got closer together
after he lost weight.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yes.
Because he had fat in the middle of them.
Yeah.
It was holding them apart.
Oh lord. Unfortunate looking person. Yeah.
You know the lady who plays the aunt in Prisoner of Azkaban? She's that same actress who played Trunchbull from Matilda.
Aunt Marge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
You know Matilda?
She's such a bitch.
Yeah.
If there's something wrong with the bitch, then there's something wrong with the pup.
Yeah.
I could quote this movie for days.
Yeah, hey. Yeah. Take it away, Ernie.
Take it away, Ernie.
I love that.
I think, honestly, I wish Alfonso Cuarón could have done the rest of them, because I feel like this one had the best feel.
Yeah. It would have been interesting if they had a different director. Like, the first two was Christopher Columbus, who was very good at dealing with child actors. He did The Goonies, he did Mrs. Doubtfire, he did the Home Alone movies. He's very good at working with child actors, and he got that sort of fun element out of them. Yeah. And then there was Alfonso Cuarón, and then I don't remember who did the fourth one, but from the fifth one onwards, it was David Yates. It might have even been David Yates for the fourth one. And he also did the Fantastic Beasts movies. And the whole series there, yeah.
He did funny shit.
Yeah.
I really would have liked him to do the Goblet of Fire.
Alfonso Cuarón.
Cuarón? Yeah. That would have been fun.
Because I really liked the Goblet of Fire. The whole premise of it, the aspect, the magic and all that sort of stuff, I really would have liked him to have done the fifth one. Also, I really need to go, so you're going to have to finish this with me.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll continue on. Do you have anything else to say, Jessica?
No, thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me dive in and talk about nostalgic things and making us all feel good.
Yes.
Really appreciate it. It's a good one. I was really happy to be on this one.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's a fun one.
Thanks for being on the episode, because I think we covered the general story arcs and the things we liked and didn't like, even though if we can't break down all the movies with you. And we went through all the actors and stuff, so that's fun as well. So thanks for that.
Thanks for having me. See ya.
I think a very brilliant thing that J.K. Rowling was able to do with this school is constantly being able to add in a strong adult character to the school each year by replacing the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher every single year. You're allowing a spot for a new influential character to be introduced, which wouldn't make sense otherwise.
Yeah, very naturally.
Yeah, it's very naturally, yeah. So I think that's actually really
Very
quite well
clever.
done, yeah. And it's not shown in the Deathly Hallows at all, but there was 2 evil Death Eater twins that were the Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers in the 7th one.
How did they get there?
Because Snape was headmaster in the 7th one, and he's meant to be a Death Eater. So there was quite a lot of Death Eater influence throughout the Deathly Hallows. Does that mean that Harry, Ron, and Hermione didn't graduate? Do they have to go back and do their 7th?
I would hope that they did.
Yeah, which is, it's not explained anywhere. Maybe they didn't.
No.
He couldn't be an Auror otherwise.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think Hermione would let herself not graduate.
Yeah, that's a good point. But that's just not explained at all. Was the 7th year not eventful at all?
I wonder, why would Snape allow those two in? Like, is it to keep up his cover and his image?
I think so,
Like,
yeah. There was a bunch of
okay.
Death Eaters in Hogwarts in the 7th one.
Freaking full on.
Yeah.
Right on.
Also, I'm pretty sure J.K. Rowling has something against blondes because she really doesn't like them. Draco and the Malfoys obviously are blonde. The Dursleys were meant to be blonde, and it's very evident.
Except for Uncle Vernon, he was supposed
Except for
to
Uncle
be.
Vernon.
Yeah.
And these evil twins that are mentioned throughout, a few of them, they're also blonde. So all these people that she hates and despises, they're all blonde.
Interesting. Quite interesting.
So, thanks again to Jessica for being on the first half of this episode and giving a brief overall discussion of the series, and we will be continuing with The Goblet of Fire. This is one of the first ones where they really had to trim a lot out of the book, because this is where the book started to get like exponentially large.
Massive.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff in there that's kind of just like, they had to, unless they were going to split this thing into 2 or 3 movies, you had to make some sacrifices, which are forgivable. And a lot of it is also just thrown in a few things here and there for the people who have read the books but don't really mean anything to just normal moviegoers, just to try to make those jumps and leaps. Because they're really quite big. There's a lot of passing of time in the Goblet of Fire, and you see that throughout the whole school year, just because there's so much that happens in it.
Well, yeah, like, you're like, oh, geez, it's been months.
Yeah.
We cut scene and it's been months. Because they had to.
Well, this one starts with him already at the Weasleys, which you hadn't seen before. This is the first one where he didn't start at the Dursleys.
The Goblet of Fire.
Yeah. He wakes up in Ron's bedroom and his scar is burning. And then Hermione tries to wake up the boys because they have to go to the Quidditch World Cup.
Oh. They must have done that well. I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Not interesting.
And there's quite a big thread in this about house elves. This is the return of Dobby and Winky.
Yeah, his
Whose was
girlfriend.
Winky again? Was that Fudge?
I think so.
I don't remember, but there's quite a lot of house elves in this. And it's kind of boring in the book. Like, there's so much. It's talking about how all the magical food that appears on the tables is prepared by the house elves in a kitchen somewhere, and it's just moved onto the tables, and a lot of the students don't appreciate that or realize that. And there's a big thread about Hermione, like, she's a big house elf activist, like, she's, like trying to give them
advocate.
their... she's trying to give them their freedom. Wasn't there, like, a class president kind of thread as well, where people are, like, voting for the popularity of other people? There was badges and stuff. There was a lot in there that wasn't really... It was sort of just explaining the day-to-day life of these people. What was happening in Hogwarts this year.
That wasn't touched on at all in the movies because...
It wasn't really necessary to the main plot line.
I wanted to make a note of, I hate how much hair there is in this movie.
I don't know why they did that. Yeah,
everybody is so hairy.
Yeah.
It is like, go get a haircut, fuck. It was just, and I remember seeing the posters for it too, and I'm like, y'all look like girls. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, maybe they're just trying to make them seem like they're getting older. It's the passage of time. Teenagers sort of just go through a phase where they do that, I guess.
I didn't appreciate it. Too much hair.
I do like how they had the Yule Ball. I like that scene and the way it's described in the book because it's showing this wizardry kind of world, this magical world, sort of in the way that you don't think of them as. Like, they're still a bunch of teenagers. They still have to go through finding dates and dealing with, girlfriends and boyfriends and things, And this whole setting has been set in a medieval castle. And you don't expect a rock band to be in the medieval castle, So it kind of breaks that up a bit. And it's a little refreshing because you get to see them out of their context. And I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Did you like Goblet of Fire?
It explored a lot more of the castle grounds. So it was really cool because Alfonso Cuarón kind of expanded the size of the grounds.
Yeah, he drastically changed the way things looked. Even the Whomping Willow, Hagrid's hut. I don't know why he managed to do that.
But it worked because it made the castle grounds a lot bigger. So it allowed for some exploration in the other movies. Particularly in this one, you've got the new... Where the first challenge is held, you've got the new arena with the dragons on the mountainside away from the castle. So that made for some interesting scenes.
And that third challenge was meant to be... The hedge maze was meant to be in the Quidditch field. But that doesn't really make sense. Why would you ruin your Quidditch field?
Yeah. Well, it's not like they need to be on the ground, ever.
Yeah. You know what I think would have been great? If J.K. Rowling had played Rita Skeeter. Because she seems like she's the kind of woman that could do that. And it's a fun character. It's not a big character. It's a side thing that's fun and ridiculous. And it would have been a really nice cameo, and I think she should have opted to try and be in that role, yeah. Because you don't need to be a great actor to be able to do that. You just need to have fun with it.
That character, because she comes back in later books. And I love the way it's handled. Was it this one? When was she turned into a beetle?
Oh, I don't remember.
But she was. Hermione turned her into a beetle. You're like, I think it was in the 7th book. She's like, you're getting too nosy. Go away.
Yeah.
So she turns her into a beetle and keeps her in a jar.
And she's obviously like a depiction of the media and how they run with stories and don't care about the truth and all the rest of it, so.
There's some good like metaphors and representations in here. Definitely. Yeah.
Apart from, say, Chamber of Secrets, Goblet of Fire definitely has the most plot holes.
I would say so. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of, like, the fact that you're introducing 2 other schools and these challenges and things.
Yeah, knowing that there's other schools is cool.
It makes sense, though. Like, if there's going to be anywhere where you're going to have some issues with the plot, it would be this one.
Well, the main one that I have a problem with is Barty Crouch Jr. is meant to be Mad-Eye Moody for the entire year. How do you pull that off, for starters? Like, you need to be a brilliant wizard, a great actor. You have to understand the relationships that Moody has with everyone. Also, how is that easier than just... You've already
using the Imperio curse?
Well, no, you've already got Barty Crouch in the walls of Hogwarts. You've got Harry aside several times throughout the story. Why don't you just, turn his breakfast bowl into a portkey and send him off? You know what I mean? Why do you have to go through all this rigmarole trying to get Harry through all 3 of the challenges just so that he could touch the cup at the end? Like, it's like, yeah, there's a lot easier ways to try and get you to Voldemort. Like, what? It didn't really make any sense. The fact that he's keeping Moody in a chest in his office and he's constantly just drinking Polyjuice. It's very illogical plan. The villain's plan doesn't make any sense in this movie. But, yeah, it's kind of has to be overlooked.
That particular one. Otherwise, you'd have no plot.
Yeah, and I don't like how...
you'd have no story.
Like, the very next few movies, Harry is acting like he's got this rapport with Moody, even though that the rapport that he had was with a Barty Crouch Jr. Moody.
He gets to know him a little bit more in the 5th book.
In the Order of the Phoenix?
Through the Order.
Okay.
So, I think that's... Because you're saying in the 7th one... He rocks up and he just talks to him like he knows him. By that point, he would.
Yeah.
Because the Weasleys and Harry and Hermione spent a lot of time at number 12 Grimmauld Place in the 5th book.
Is Moody in the 6th one? I don't think so. A lot of people regard the 5th one, Order of the Phoenix, as the best movie of all of them. And I don't know. I don't think I agree with that. I think there are the ones that are funner and more magical and better movies, but I do really quite like Order of the Phoenix.
I think Prisoner of Azkaban was really the best one. The Order of the Phoenix, for me, honestly, I get to this point where I'm like, what actually happens in this movie?
Order of the Phoenix?
I'm having to sit back and think about, okay, it's kind of a regular year back at Hogwarts. This is where Harry is starting to have
Except the Ministry
issues.
is, like, affecting Hogwarts more because... Why is it again? Why is the Ministry stepping in if they don't believe that Voldemort is back?
To stop Dumbledore from doing anything rash.
Right.
And Fudge is also off his tree, so...
This one actually had the Centaur from the first one that saves Harry from Voldemort. He's drinking the blood of the unicorn. He comes back as the teacher in the fifth one. And they cut that out because it's for timing things. The fifth one's a massive book.
After Umbridge fires Trelawney, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yep.
But in the movie, she's saved by McGonagall?
Yes.
And that didn't happen in the book?
No, you got that mixed up. It happens in both.
Okay.
She stays at the castle.
Right, okay.
Honestly, I have trouble remembering what happened in that movie. I know it's like Umbridge and everything, but I just forget. I forget when it happens.
Yeah, this was the introduction of... Well, you've got Luna Lovegood, you've got the prophecy. This is where you first to see... I like the idea of, like, a team of people standing up against Voldemort. You get to see Sirius Black not as a prisoner, and he's like, you know,
this
a sharp-dressed
got
man.
Dumbledore's army.
Yeah, why was it called Dumbledore's Army? Because I'm like, why wouldn't you just call it the Order of the Phoenix? Because Sirius says you guys are the new generation of the Order. So I would think that you would call it the Order of the Phoenix.
Because you don't want it... They didn't want it to be associated... I think it's explained more in the book. I don't entirely remember why.
I don't like how the room of requirement is like just a MacGuffin where it's like, oh, I'm going to put something in there just to explain how you managed to find a place where no one can come across and it's equipped for exactly what you need. It was kind of just something that she needed to add in there as a storytelling trope.
But it comes up again and again.
Yeah, only from this point onwards. And again, it works as a MacGuffin, as like, we need a place that could be used as anything.
I thought that's where they were keeping the Mirror of Erised.
I didn't think so.
Okay. Maybe that's just me.
I do like the scene where everyone's got their Patronuses.
Yeah. However, in that scene, I'm like all these teenagers could produce fully formed Patronuses on the first go.
Yeah, it's meant to be like a big accomplishment to be able to do that.
I get why they did it because of movie restrictions, but...
Can I just say, in the third one, where they've got the Boggart, why does the Patronus work against something that's pretending to be a Dementor? You would think the Patronus only works against actual Dementors?
I don't know, I think it's just a protection charm. So it would work against anything, really.
Okay, so that's what Patronus is meant to be.
Yeah.
Alright, I like that explanation.
It's been
a while since I've read the books.
Honestly, it's like your totem. It's like your protector, your guardian.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I guess it is like a totem, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think the sixth one is one of the better ones for story progression. It progresses a lot. It's a big jump between learning about the prophecy and the Ministry actually realizing that Voldemort is back in the fifth one, all the way to the Deathly Hallows where everyone is panicked. There's Death Eaters everywhere. Harry, Ron, and Hermione are running around at Horcruxes. That sixth one is a crucial element, and I really quite like the way it's depicted. It's really quite a funny movie.
The sixth movie?
Yes.
I like it because, honestly, it feels like the first regular, uneventful year at Hogwarts in a really long time.
Maybe that's what it is, yeah.
You know, like, nothing's happening. You don't have people coming in and changing everything.
Yeah, Slughorn's like actually a teacher. It's been a few years since we've had one of those.
Yeah, like honestly, it kind of feels like the Chamber of Secrets in terms of the way things happen, you know? And it hasn't felt like that in a really long time.
Actually, since Philosopher's Stone with Quirrell as the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, it's the only one with the actual teacher because Gilderoy Lockhart wasn't a teacher.
Yep.
Umbridge wasn't. Moody wasn't.
Lupin was.
Oh, Lupin was, I guess, yeah. Dumbledore's got pretty bad judgment when he's hiring his teachers.
Well,
there must be a
and this
really
is
shortage
why
of teachers out there.
I wonder, like, who actually gets to decide?
I don't like that whole Gilderoy Lockhart trait throughout all of Chamber of Secrets because everyone knows he's a fraud and yet they don't do anything about it.
Yeah, and he's like, of all the classes that you're teaching where you'd want someone who knows what they're doing, like, really?
And they don't close the school down ever. It's like they know all the students are in danger. There is a basilisk getting around. Students are like very close to death. They'd only been petrified on a technicality, basically, and yet they won't send people home. They won't close down the school. They know
and they
Lockhart.
talk about it like 4 times. They're like, the school will need to be closed.
Yeah.
Oh, we won't do it though.
There's that part where McGonagall is like, "Oh, Lockhart, you've been saying all along that you've always known where the entry of the Chamber of Secrets are. I'll let you deal with it." And everyone just goes along their way, even though she gives that smirk like she knows that he's a fraud. Everyone does. Anyway, that's why Chamber of Secrets is flawed for me.
I'm wondering if she's like, well, we're kind of fucked already anyway. Might as well let him go and, like, knock himself out of the way and then we'll go deal with it.
It seems very negligent. I think Dumbledore has some very poor judgment throughout this entire series.
I like to just ignore that because I don't like to think as Dumbledore
Yeah, you kind of have to.
As having poor judgment.
I think the 6th one shows Dumbledore as a brilliant wizard better than any other one. That's definitely got that going for it because he planned that death with Snape. He had it for a reason. And I think that's him really thinking ahead as to what is important, and I'm not.
I think, though, like, it must piss Harry off that, like, everything has to do with him, and this is the final instance of where people are actually starting to, like, talk to him about it.
Yeah.
And even
they just
then,
kept him
like,
in the
it's
dark.
like,
Oh, he's a child.
It's like, can you please just tell me what I need to know? And that really was evident in the 5th book when Dumbledore wouldn't talk to him because he was worried he would, like, spark that rage in him or whatever.
Do you think Dumbledore's a dick for leaving Harry with the Dursleys in the first place, or instead of just, like, leaving him with a magical orphanage or something else?
Well, what I was wondering is where are his grandparents?
Yeah. They wouldn't have been Muggle-born. They must have been dead.
Leave him with the Potters. You know?
I think the trait was that he had no other family. This was it.
Yeah.
But Dumbledore knew that he was being abused in several ways. He was left under the cupboard under the stairs for years. He was their slave, basically, and Dumbledore knew all of this. And I just think that's
how would he have known all of that?
Well, Dumbledore has had people watching him.
Mrs. Fig.
Mrs. Fig came after the 4th one.
Mrs. Fig was always there in the book. She was talked about in the first book.
Well, there's that. Dumbledore even says in the 6th one, he's like, "Oh, you've come a long way since that boy under the cupboard under the stairs or whatever." So he knew what he was leaving him in. And that's why McGonagall was saying that to him in the first one. He's like, are you sure? Like, you know what these people are like. And Dumbledore's like, oh, it's the only family he's got, because everyone knew what the Dursleys were like. I don't know, I don't agree with Dumbledore sometimes.
But it allows us to bond with him better, because he's been so hard done by.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he is the audience character, because he's coming from a Muggle family and going into the Wizarding world, so you kind of needed that character to be like that. I think the 6th one is really fun when Harry drinks the Felix Felicis. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Felix Felicis?
Felix...
Liquid luck.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I don't know, I just think it's a really fun trait. It's kind of an enjoyable movie before it gets, like, crazy dark.
Mm-hmm. Well, just, like, the interactions that you see with the Slug Club, even.
Yeah, you see a lot of, like, teenage back and forth romantic sort of things. Everyone's playing jokes on each other, and I kind of like that.
This is the one where you've got Ron and Lavender Brown. I remember reading about that too. I'm pretty sure I remember, like, cringing at some of those interactions, even reading them as a teenager. I'm like, oh god, have some self-respect, woman.
So then there's the 7th one, The Deathly Hallows, was broken into 2 movies. I think it kind of needed to be, because that is a massive book and every page has some sort of revelation that is brilliantly written.
It was just, I remember I read that book in 3 days. I couldn't put it down. Yeah. I couldn't put it down. I would sit there. I sat in my room, I remember one day, for like 6 hours. And before I looked up and was like, holy shit, I've been sitting here reading for that long.
It's probably the best book.
There was no filler.
That's a good point. There is no filler.
There was no anything. Every page, like, I feel like to fully understand everything, like, you gotta highlight and go back and mark things and be like, like, it was just, there was so much information in there. And that said, I feel like I can't do justice to it in this review because it's been so long since I read the book and we haven't watched the movies yet.
Well, you've seen the movies before.
Long time ago. They're full of stuff, Brenton.
It has a lot on Dumbledore and his history and his family, Dumbledore's family.
Yeah. That's
not touched on in the movies, and I remember that being very important information. There was some stuff in there that I remember reading. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Well, I think part of it was such an issue because Rita Skeeter released a book that was like a tell-all about Dumbledore's life.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. That was a lot of falsities. And so I think that's where learning that information became important because it raised questions about, well, is this true? Is this not true? This can't be true. What's the truth?
Deathly Hallows Part 1 definitely feels like half a movie. And it's very strange to me because it's the first Harry Potter movie that doesn't have Hogwarts. It's the only one that doesn't have Hogwarts.
Well, and it was filmed. I didn't like the way it was filmed. It was
all artsy.
It was pretty artsy. It
was like an indie movie.
Cinematography with, like, landscape shots. I feel like you could have done it more classically, and I feel like, sorry, not sorry, like, this is the end of a saga. Like, focus on the story, and not on making it avant-garde.
Artsy, yeah. I guess they kind of had to work with it, sort of thing. There are some elements in here where Ron sort of leaves because he's angry. And I really just like watching the relationship between Harry and Hermione. Because they're just really good friends, and they have been since the beginning. When I first started watching them and reading them, I thought Harry is going to end up with the girl, because that's usually what you do. You get your protagonist, you got your best friend, and you got the girl, And that's it. It's not like that at all in this series. And it's pushed aside the fact that Harry's not interested in Hermione quite early on. So by the time you get to the 7th one, they're just really good friends, and I like watching that relationship. They kind of need each other.
Like, that it's not going to become anything.
Yeah.
You're starting to wonder if Hermione and Ron are finally going to get their stuff dealt with. But it's a side. I'm with you. It's kind of refreshing.
Yeah.
And to know so early on that, like, okay, this isn't something that's going to be followed. Let's just forget about it and focus on the more important things.
I remember the Battle of Hogwarts written in the book was a massive thing. Like, it was a lot going on. I remember it had, like, the spiders that was from the forest in the second one that came back to the battle. It had Hagrid with his giants. There was a lot of giants, like, wrecking the castle. There was a lot more to it than what was shown in the movie. Deathly Hallows was fucking dense.
I'm thinking, like, that scene had chapters and chapters devoted to it.
Yep.
And you were going between people, you know what I mean? Like, you'd cut to what's Molly Weasley doing, what's Lupin doing, what's Harry doing, what's Ron doing, what's Neville doing. You'd bounce around between people, and it's all happening at the same time. It was compelling as hell, that book.
Yeah.
Like, she wrote it so well. She must have written it and rewritten it and edited it and revised, because it never feels like too much. The only thing that feels like too much, honestly, is, like, the Peveril stuff. But it's necessary information.
I think my favorite book series of all time is the Harry Potter series, and I think Deathly Hallows is the best Harry Potter book. Even though the first one does have its charm with introducing you to this world and the innocence behind it. It's a children's book. The first one is a children's book, and the last one is not.
The last one is very much like an young adult's book.
Yeah. Deathly Hallows is beautifully written. and it's a dense book, and it is absolutely essential reading for anyone who is a fan of the series. But the movies aren't fun at all, and they're not supposed to be. They're meant to be a concluding chapter, and I think it needed to be in 2 parts, even though part 1 is pretty boring.
Well, it's all necessary information. And I've probably said this already.
We're not doing it justice.
I can't imagine going into this movie series without having read the books. From book 3 onward, like, I honestly feel you're just wasting your time. They were made for fans.
Well, I read the first 4, and then the movies came out, and then I finished the last ones. So there was a lot there where I'm like, oh, that so makes sense now. Like, there was a lot of revelations that I had, because I read some of the books before the movies, and then watched the movies before the books and other times, so...
Mm-hmm. Sorry, not sorry. I know, at least I am totally biased. I loved these books. They're like part of my identity growing up. You know, it was an essential part of my childhood.
And it was for a lot of people.
It was the first book series that I read. It made me fall in love with fantasy. It's like mystical fantasy is still my favorite genre of book. I've read many, many more long series, like multi-book series of fantasy books because of these books. And I recommend that everybody read these. I've heard arguments about, like, it's just a rip-off of Lord of the Rings. It's just...
No, I think we were talking a few episodes ago when we did Back to the Future, and we were talking about how Rick and Morty is just a play on Doc and Marty. And we were talking about how it's really nice to see that they've created something new from a previous property, and there's a completely different things now, what they've become. So yeah, Harry Potter takes a lot from mythology and Lord of the Rings, but it's created something that stands alone and is beautiful as a masterpiece of its own. Even though it took inspiration from other places, I think that's completely forgivable. And they're currently going through releasing the illustrated versions of those books. I really want to reread them again with the illustrated versions.
Like, it's always interesting to see how somebody else imagines something that you have. You know?
Yeah.
It's different.
Well, I read quite a lot when I was a kid, and other books felt like they were being written to kids, middle school kids, right? Mm-hmm. J.K. Rowling didn't dumb it down. She used big words. It made you go look at the dictionary and thesaurus and be like, what does this actually mean? And I kind of like that. They were written really, really well. That's why it stood out to me.
That's another thing, like, I was told as a young teenager, like, that I had an extensive vocabulary, and I know that my extensive vocabulary came from these books. This was the beginning of intellectual development for me as a child. You know, they had such a profound effect on me. Making it sound like they changed my life. I mean, they didn't, but, you know, they're important.
I think the movie series is one of the better adaptations I've seen, and it's understandable towards the end of the series that they stray away from the books just because they had to, because they're very big books. I like Prisoner of Azkaban. It's probably the best. But
I would say if you look at movie adaptations, compare, sorry to do it again, Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. Lord of the Rings was made to put Lord of the Rings on screen. And you can sit there and you can watch those movies and you can have the whole story and know it without reading the books. Harry Potter was made to be a film adaptation of the books. However, it was by and large made for fans. People who already knew the stories. I feel like Lord of the Rings was not made for people who already knew the stories.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually, yeah.
Also, huge Lord of the Rings fan. Haven't read the books yet. We have been Danielle and Brenton this week. Thanks for joining us. Feel free to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on all the socials. We're most active on Instagram. You can also follow us on Facebook or comment on SoundCloud and YouTube, or support us on Patreon. We've got every episode uncut and unedited, as well as bonus episodes every month, and polls voting on what you would like to hear in the future. And all of that extra content is unlocked and free to everyone. It's just our platform for that content, so you can check it out over on We Are DB on Patreon. And until next week, thanks for listening.